Hi, I'm Cathy Miron, CEO of eSilo, a data backup and cybersecurity company. And today I'm having a conversation with my good friend and business attorney, Randy Carpinia. Randy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. It's so good to be here. Cathy and I work together a lot on keeping you protected.
So the reason I invited Randy to do this video with me was because I recently received a cyber threat advisory from one of the cybersecurity companies we work very closely with. And it is warning small businesses of the LockBit 2.0 ransomware, which has been picking up steam and causing a lot of havoc for small businesses, locking them out of their systems, encrypting their data, and making it totally unreadable. But what's unique about this ransomware is that it is disguised as a legal notice. So, Randy, people are receiving emails that look like they're legitimate notices from another attorney, and it says that there is copyright infringement. And the user, the victim, has to open a zip file which contains a PDF attachment, or what looks like a PDF, a document attachment. And then when they do that, they're actually downloading an executable file that installs the ransomware on their machines. So the reason I wanted to ask you is, how should companies expect to receive these types of legal notices? And if you receive an email like this, how do you know if it's legit or not?
Yeah, absolutely. And is it legit or not has different kind of levels, right? And I do know, I've seen it myself, many people who receive something like this, which is the opposite of what you're saying, just ignore it. So side tip is, don't ignore legal notices, excuse me, even if they come as an email.
And I've done that all the time. I've assumed that they were scams. My little cyber antenna is up.
We're very digital these days. And, if you think about it, if I was to look you up, your emails on your website, your emails on your LinkedIn profile, and so many legitimate companies, that's where they'll find the email. And many times they'll send by email and physical address, but they don't always, your physical address is not always as visible. But let's get back to your questions. That was kind of a side thing. A legitimate copyright notice or infringement accusation can come in a number of ways. Sometimes it comes from the copyright owner itself. Sometimes it comes from a law firm. There are law firms, my law firm doesn't do this, but there are law firms whose entire business model is to seek out, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but seek out infringement and send notices, and that's how they enforce, and that's a business model. So you never want, as we said, you never want to ignore just because it came from the copyright owner themselves, but there are certain things you can look for. So a legitimate copyright infringement notice is going to identify the copyright registration number. Super simple, right? And copyright registrations, the public record will not show the actual infringed material. It'll be, like a database record. And normally a true copyright infringement notice will literally have a screenshot of the Copyright Office registration, or we'll just have the details. So the first kind of hint that this is not real is if they're asking you to download something. This is very common for any scam. So if you receive a notice that says, open me, just as you, I know, always teach us, Cathy, don't do it. If the email has some weird email address, again, as this is such common sense, don't do it. But most importantly is, if you do receive such a notice, before you do anything, get an attorney, an IP attorney who understands what infringement is, to look at it. Many times, if someone sends me something, I don't even charge them just to look at it, so you can very quickly, go to Cathy, to eSilo, go to a business attorney that an IP attorney and just get somebody else's eyes on it first.
Because we've received a couple of those in the past, and things that tipped me off to it potentially not being legitimate was they were submitted through the contact us form on the website. So it didn't actually come addressed to any individual or our privacy email address and contact, but it was submitted just like any other, any other web form. But I did want to ask you, in some of them, we've seen links. So it's not a file to download, but it's a link to go out to what looks like a Google hosted Google Drive folder or Google Sites. Would those also be indicators of potential risk?
Yeah, so if a law firm is sending an infringement notice, they're not going to send links, even if it's links to supposedly your own, like to show the infringing material. They will always do PDF, to the letter.
As an attachment.
So a normal letter would, like, that you would get in the mail, or and I will say that could be an attachment, a PDF attachment, would have the letter and exhibits, and the exhibits would have actual visuals of what is the infringing material. It would never be a link. And the reason is, for evidence purposes, if they only use a link, well, that could disappear, right? The person could go in and change it and there's no proof. So a legitimate infringement is going to PDF or, screenshot the infringement.
Now, how do you avoid getting an infringement notice in the first place? Because I know you and I have had lots of conversations, and you have a lot of great tips that I think most small businesses and entrepreneurs don't think about when it comes to creating content online, publishing on social media, creation of their websites. So can you share some of those ways to avoid receiving any of those types of notices, legitimate or otherwise?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is my favorite topic to talk about. And since this is a short video, I'm going to kind of give you my 3 lines of defenses without getting into a huge amount of detail. But small marketing ploy here. If you want to learn more, go to Attorney Randy Carpenia YouTube channel. I've got a bunch of videos about it. But the key, so here's like all you need to remember for today. The first line of defense is always use your own material. So what I always say, it's better to have B+ content than risk infringement by an A+ creator. So, I use my high school daughter to do much of my firm's images for social media. She's phenomenal, of course, but at least they know they're.
Yes.
She is phenomenal, but the best part is I know I don't have to worry. I write all my own content, and you should too. Just because you see something that's super cool and running around Facebook or LinkedIn or online, or you Google search for an image, don't use it. So then when I tell people that, the next thing I say is, yeah, but there's such great content and my clients would so benefit for it. And for me to redo it, or it won't work. Well, then get permission. So there's a couple of ways you get permission. And again, I could go on and on and on. The first is you literally reach out and in writing ask the content creator, can I use this? Here's what I want to use it for. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes.
What if you don't know who the owner is or the creator?
Yeah, so sometimes what you're getting is off a website, right? And in that case, look at the terms of the website. I've had people who think it's free to use, but if you look at the terms, it's really not. And if you don't, just don't use it. If you don't guess. And a side note to the having permission, if there's images of people or brands, for example, in a photo, just because the creator gave you permission, you also need permission from the people and the brands in it. So it can get really messy. So again, going back to line of defense number 1, just make your own. Don't use other people's. Yeah. So the third is you're now listening to us and saying, oh my gosh, I have so much stuff. My personal Facebook, not me, but this is what you're saying. My personal Facebook has so much cool images and content and quotes that I've copied. Get rid of them. Delete anything that you don't know, whether it's on your website, on your social media. just get rid of it, because copyright infringement, although we're talking about scams, is a real thing. And if you're comfortable that you are not infringing, then when that copyright infringement scam email comes, you're less likely to be taken in by it.
Yeah, because you know that you've followed all the rules and done
Yeah.
everything right. So two things that kind of came to mind as you were explaining that. One is back on the second line of defense. So there's a lot of websites that advertise free images and free content. And I know you said check the terms and conditions of the site itself. But one thing that I have also heard is that in some cases, because anyone can upload their own pictures, or can upload content, I should say, to a lot of those websites, that content is sometimes stolen from other creators. So just because you find it on a site like Pixabay or Unsplash or one of the other ones, doesn't mean that the original author approved and granted license or granted rights to everybody to use that content. And so even if you got it from one of those sites, if a creator was to enforce that copyright, they could come after you directly. And from what I've been told, there's not much that you can do. Is that right?
It is, and I'll go. Remember, I said briefly about check the terms. So the shared, especially with images, the shared content sites, if you read the terms, they have no liability to the fact, whether this is actually owned by the person that, like you said, the person that uploaded it tells them, yes, I own it, but they are hands off. So if you read the terms, you'll see that first of all, they say we don't guarantee. So it's like use at your own risk. And so, yes, that the free sites, because most of the free sites are that shared content type of site.
Gotcha.
Absolutely correct.
And to buy a license to an image, I've seen on a lot of these sites, it's, sometimes it's as low as $1 or maybe $10. So the cost is really nominal. What's the cost if you were to experience a copyright infringement, lawsuit or claim? What should a small business expect to pay to defend themselves, and what happens if they lose?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of my clients who've gotten in this situation, we will settle, because litigation is ginormous. That's not a legal term, that's a brand term. I would say an average demand for, say, a photo that you put on your website that is infringing is, in the 10 to 15K range. That's for a settlement. And of course, we can usually negotiate that down, thank goodness. But if you start, and I'm not a litigator, so when clients come to me, they know that I'll help introduce them to a litigation, but litigation can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars just in attorney's fees. So you just, and then the settlements, who knows? So you really, you really want to take notices seriously. Be cautious, as we started this discussion about links and downloads. They shouldn't be there. Get somebody like a Cathy or I to look at it that can make some logical choices. But the best, again, my lines of defense, just be careful so that if you do receive, you're going to think twice, because you're going to say, I don't think I've done anything wrong.
Yeah. The problem that we've seen with ransomware and just bad actors in general is that they're constantly innovating on different ways to trick people to open their emails, download the payloads. And this is just the latest in a slew of tactics that has helped LockBit really proliferate as one of the top ransomware streams right now. So I would say, in addition to all of the great advice that Randy, you've shared, everybody needs to be making sure that they're using multi-factor authentication for all of their online accounts. They need to have good email spam filters that can filter out malicious attachments. And they also need to be having anti-malware or strong antivirus software on all of their devices, not just computers, but also mobile phones, tablets, things like that. And then lastly, a strong set of offsite backups so that that no matter what happens, whatever scam you fall for or link that you accidentally click on, you can always reverse any damage done to your machine and recover your data in the event of a lockout with ransomware. So thanks, Randy, for sharing all of this with us.
And thank you. This was such a great chat.
All right. Take care.